You ready? We got somebody on cartels? Anyone? Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kum Jabi Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava. Thank you. Jai Kum Jabi Bihari. Gopichana Vallabhava Jaya Giri Vadam Hari. Jaya Giri Vadam Hari. Yasoda Nandana Braja Janaram Janaram Yasoda Nandana Braja Janaram Jaya Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jakunjabi Hari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jakunjabi Hari. Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunjabi Hari. Gopichana Vallabhava Jaya Giri Vadadhari. Jaya Giri Vadadhari. Yasoda Nandana Braja Janara. Yasoda Nandana Braja Janara. Jai Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunjabi Hari. Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunjabi Hari. Bo Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Okay, please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Gyanantamanandasya Garanjana Shalakaya Chakshusanmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, and we are in chapter number 16. This chapter is entitled Krishna Chastises the Serpent Kaliya. And we are reading from text number 17 up to text number 30. And our focus verse, thank you, Prabhu. Our focus verse is 26. So can my readers take over? Right? Verse number 17. Translation.
The residents hurried towards the bank of the Yamuna in search of their dearmost Krishna, following the path marked by his footprints, which bore the unique signs of the personality of Godhead.
The footprints of Lord Krishna, the master of the entire cowherd community, were marked with the lotus flower, barley corn, elephant goad, thunderbolt, and flag. My dear King Parikshit, seeing his footprints on the path among the cows' hoofprints, the residents of Vrindavan rushed along in great haste.
As they hurried along the path to the bank of Yamuna river, they saw from a distance that Krishna was in the lake, motionless, within the coils of the black serpent. They further saw that the cowherd boys had fallen unconscious and that the animals were standing on all sides crying out for Krishna. Seeing all this, the residents of Vrindavan were overwhelmed and with anguish and confusion.
Excellent. Text 20.
When the young gopis, whose minds were constantly attached to Krishna, the unlimited Supreme Lord, saw that he was now within the grips of the serpent, they remembered his loving friendship, his smiling glances, and his talks with them. Burning with great sorrow, they saw the entire universe as void.
Text 21. Although the elder gopis were feeling just as much distress at sea and were pouring forth a flood of sorrowful tears, they had to forcibly hold back Krishna's mother, whose consciousness was totally absorbed in her son. Standing like corpses, with their eyes fixed upon his face, these gopis each took turns recounting the pastime of the darlings of the Braja.
Lord Balaram then saw that Nanda Maharaj and the other cowherd men, who had dedicated their very lives to Krishna, were beginning to enter the serpent's lake. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Balaram fully knew Lord Krishna's actual power, and therefore he restrained them.
His coils tormented. The Lord remained for some time within the coils of the serpent, imitating the behavior of an ordinary mortal. But when he understood that the women, children, and other residents of his village of Gokul were in acute distress because of their love for him, their only shelter and goal in life, he immediately rose up from the bonds of the Kaliya serpent.
Text 24. His coils tormented by the expanding body of the Lord, Kaliya released him. In great anger, the serpent then raised his hood high and stood still, breathing heavily. His nostrils appeared like vessels for cooking poison, and his staring eyes in his face like firebrands. Thus the serpent looked at the Lord.
Again and again Kaliya licked his lips with his bifurcated tongues as he stared at Krishna with a glance full of terrible poisonous fire. But Krishna playfully circled around him just as Garuda would play with a snake. In response, Kaliya also moved about looking for an opportunity to bite the Lord.
Having severely depleted the serpent's strength with his relentless circling, Sri Krishna, the Oran of everything, pushed down Kaliya's raised shoulders and mounted his broad serpentine heads. Thus Lord Sri Krishna, the original master of all the fine arts, began to dance, his lotus feet deeply reddened by the touch of the numerous jewels upon the serpent's head.
Seeing the Lord dancing, his servants in the heavenly planets, the Gandharvas, Siddhas, sages, Charanas, and wives of the demigods, immediately arrived there. With great pleasure, they began accompanying the Lord's dancing by playing drums, such as mridangas, panavas, and anakas. They also made offerings of songs, flowers, and prayers.
$28.
My dear king, Kaliya had 101 prominent heads, and when one of them would not bow down, Lord Shri Krishna, who inflicts punishment on cruel wrongdoers, would smash that stubborn head by striking it with his feet. Then as Kaliya entered his death throes, he began wheeling his heads around and vomiting ghastly blood from his mouth and nostrils. The serpent thus experienced extreme pain and misery.
Exuding poisonous waste from his eyes, Kaliya would occasionally dare to raise up one of his heads, which would breathe heavily with anger. Then the Lord would dance on it and subdue it, forcing it to bow down with his foot. The demigods took each of these exhibitions as an opportunity to worship him, the primeval personality of Godhead, with showers of flowers.
My dear King Parikshit, Lord Krishna's wonderful, powerful dancing, trampling, and broke all of Kaliya's 1,000 hoods. Then the serpent, profusely vomiting blood from his mouth, finally recognized Lord Shri Krishna to be the eternal personality of Godhead, the supreme master of all moving and non-moving beings. Shri Narayan, thus within his mind, Kaliya took shelter of the Lord.
Wow, that's a beautiful ending to the pastime, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to read the Sanskrit together for text number 26. Let's see here. Evam paribrahma hatojasam. Oh, that's not the meter. What's the meter for this one? Thank you. Evam paribrahma hatojasam anhatam sam. Anyamatat pritu shrira swa dirudha adya. Tanmurd da ratna nikara sparsati tamra. Padambujo kila kalati gurun nanarta. Okay, let me try it one more time. I'll turn it over to my Sanskrit scholars here. Evam paribrahmahato jasam anatam sham. Anya matat pritu shiraswa dirudha adyaha. Tanmurta ratna nikara sparsati tamra. Padam pujo kila kala diguru nanarta. Evam paribrahmahato jasamanatam sam. Anyam tat britu saraswata hudya atya. Tanmurda ratna nikara sparsati tamra. Padambujo kila kala digurun narta. Evam pari brahmahato jasam anantam sam. Anmanmatat prito swasa swasamirda ya. Tan murdaratna nikaras barsati tadamram. Adam kila kala. Word for word? Want to do it together? Evam, in this way, Paribrahma, because of the Lord's moving around him, Hata, spoiled, Ojasam, whose strength, Ananda, raised high, Amsam, whose shoulders, Anamya, making him bend down, Tat, his, Pritu, unto the broad heads, Adiruddha, having climbed up, Adya, the unlimited origin of everything, Tat, his, Murda, on the heads, Ratna Nikara, the various jewels, Sparsha, because of touching, Ati Tamra, very much reddened, Pada Ambuja, whose lotus feet, Akila Kala, of all arts, Adi Guru, the original spiritual master, Ananta, began to dance. Translation and purport. Having severely depleted the serpent's strength with his relentless circling, Sri Krishna, the origin of everything, pushed down Kaliya's raised shoulders and mounted his broad serpentine heads. Thus, Lord Sri Krishna, the original master of all fine arts, began to dance. His lotus feet, deeply reddened by the touch of the numerous jewels upon the serpent's heads. Purport. Sri Harivamsa states, Shirasa Krishno Jagraha Swa Hastina Vannama. Krishna grabbed Kaliya's head with his hand and forced it to bow down. Most people in this world are quite reluctant to bow down to the Supreme Lord, the absolute truth. In the contaminated state called material consciousness, we, conditioned souls, become proud of our insignificant position and are thus reluctant to bow our heads before the Lord. Yet, just as Lord Krishna forcibly pushed Kaliya's heads down and thus defeated him, the Supreme Lord's energy in the form of irresistible time kills all conditioned souls and thus forces them to bow down their arrogant heads. We should therefore give up the artificial position of material life and become faithful servants of the Supreme Lord, enthusiastically bowing down at his lotus feet. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that Lord Krishna's lotus feet became red like copper because of their contact with the numerous hard jewels upon the heads of Kaliya. Lord Krishna, with whose glowing reddish feet, then began to demonstrate his artistic skill by dancing on the unsteady moving surface of the serpent's hoods. This extraordinary demonstration of dancing skill was meant for the pleasure of the young women of Vrindavan, who at this phase of their relationship with Krishna were seriously falling in love with him. Om Ganatimanandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Sanmilyatam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurube Namaha. Srila Prabhupada was addressed once about this point and by a materialistic person, and this scholar, he was challenging Prabhupada about Krishna consciousness, and Prabhupada responded to him that we don't have to prove to you that Krishna is God. When Krishna slaps you down dead at the end of your life, then you'll understand who God is. So that's the point, right? That the Supreme Lord is not our servant. He doesn't have to prove anything to us. But yet, if we remain in this false ego, the false ego of material consciousness, of bodily identification, then by the arrangement of time, the material energy will force us to bow down. So here the recommendation is, rather than that, we should fall in love with Krishna and enthusiastically bow down. So what does it mean to bow down? Can I ask you? Someone? Anyone? All of you? Mother Kunti.
To bow down the head is to show complete submission to the person that you're bowing to.
Thank you very much. Any more responses to this? Bowing down, bowing down.
Bow down, mister.
Bow down, mister. There was a famous, well, he was kind of famous, right? Boy George.
He was very famous.
Was he very famous? I seen him not too long ago.
He still has a very large following.
Yeah, he was talking about, bowing down, actually. Yeah, but he had a song out, right? Bow down, mister. Mm-hmm. Bowing down, when we bow down before the Lord or before a qualified person like our parents, if they're saintly and devoted, or our spiritual master or any devotee or a teacher, our love for them grows. Because we're taking a position, as Mother Kunti stated, of subservience. Now we know that Krishna consciousness is a little bit different from religion, in that religion implies faith. Faith can change, right? We can be Christians, change and become Buddhists, change and become Muslims, change and become Hufis. Sufis, Hufis, change and become Hindus. Prabhupada was very, adamant and made this very clear that we're not Hindus. That the word Hindu was actually coined by the Mughals, the Muslims. When they invaded India, they crossed the Indus River and they entered into the state of Sindur. But there's no S in the Mughal alphabet, so they called everyone on the northern side of the Indus River Hindu. And then the British adopted it to divide and rule the Indian people from the Muslims. You see? So it was a coined term, and it was used for a political purpose to divide the Indians and the Muslims. You see? But Hinduism, that's kind of like calling everything we do here Americanism. Right? It's very, what should I say, muddled and ambiguous. It's very vague, that concept. And because of that, you'll see that especially young Indians, they have a very hard time with being Hindus. Jayadvaita Maharaj has got a discussion online, His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj, where he attended an interfaith dialogue and interfaith, I guess it's kind of a celebration. What's that on a university campus when they get all the different religions to come together? It's interfaith dialogue. But so the Christians came up and spoke about, being Christians. The Muslims got up and spoke about being Muslims, and the Hindus got up. And the point that this PhD student made was that, well, you shouldn't be attached to the results of your work. Okay? And the point that he was making is that even though I've worked for the last 8 years to get my PhD, I shouldn't care about what the result will be. So does that sound like our philosophy? No, we care about the results. Why?
Because you're offering them to Krishna.
Because we're offering to Krishna, right? You see? Once, His Grace Burijan Prabhu, he was in charge of our Gurukul system for a long time. His wife, Mother Jagatarini, they're very close to my wife Kumkumangi and I. He's an initiating spiritual master. She was a movie actress. And, but they were living in, this was in Hong Kong at the time. And Burijan Prabhu had a small business selling Nepali handbags. And he was supporting his wife and 2 kids like that. But all the, Hare Krishna, all the devotees were going out and doing Sankirtan and Harinam and, you know, all the single devotees. And so he thought, well, better I just give this up. It's just a mundane pursuit, and I move into the temple. So he asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, should I give up my business and just move into the temple and preach? And Prabhupada said, don't you think we need money to preach Krishna consciousness? Prabhupada said, what you're saying to me is a hippie's philosophy. He said, we need money to spread this movement. And he said, and you're a responsible man by taking care of your wife and kids. You see? So here, the Harivamsa is being quoted about Krishna dancing on the heads of Kaliya. And here we find out that, here it's being stated that Krishna was kicking his head so hard that he was vomiting blood. That's pretty hard, right? But yet, he was dancing so gracefully, and the heads were moving here and there, but yet Krishna, he could dance on their heads, even though they were moving. It says here 101 prominent heads. So he had more than 100 heads, but 101 heads. Now, something, I don't know if any of you follow, but I have a good friend who I've done like Braj Mandal Parikram with, and he was the temple president in New Zealand for quite a while. His name is Kala Samvara. So Kala Samvara Prabhu, he was in the car with his wife when Tamal Krishna Goswami passed away when there was this car crash near Mayapur. But Kala Samvara, part of the year, he stays in New Zealand. He does Harinam. What he does for a profession is he rescues people that are lost in the mountains in New Zealand that go out there, you know, without training. They go out like in a crew with a helicopter and they save people. That's what he does for a living. But he also oversees the temple. And what's the main city in New Zealand? Auckland. I wanted to say that, but I wasn't sure. Yeah, the Auckland temple. And then, so part of the year he does that, and then part of the year he goes to Vrindavan especially. He's a big Brijabasi follower. And he goes around and you know, does beautiful photography. If you follow him online, you'll be amazed at his photography. Okay, but what he did not too long ago was he went into the mountains of Fiji to find the Kaliya snake. Now, if you ask the devotees from Fiji, or you can even listen to lectures by Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada himself said that when Kaliya was driven out of Vrindavan by Krishna, he went to Fiji. And the reason Prabhupada concluded that is on that island there were no snakes, but yet the villagers and the local people there, they said that there's this massive snake in the mountains. And according to the history of the local people of Fiji, anyone who went up into the mountains to find this snake, they either came back and they were mad, insane, like crazy, out of their mind, or they never came back at all. So do you think Kala Samvara Prabhu should have gone up there? Kala Samvara Prabhu, are you listening? Are you still sane after that?
Kala Samvara Prabhu was on Nectar Drops, Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami's Zoom meeting about a year ago. And he sounded extremely lucid and very level-headed.
Right, just a very brilliant, wonderful,
Brilliant,
soft-hearted
yep.
devotee. Whenever I've spent any time with him, it just amazes me how ecstatic he is. Yeah, he went up there, and he looked, and he went in the caves, and he walked all over the mountain area where they said that Kaliya was, but he said he couldn't find him. So does that mean this is mythology?
What about the Loch Ness Monster, Palapatria?
No, I lived in Scotland for a couple of years, and the devotees in Scotland are convinced that the Loch Ness Monster is Kaliya. Don't quote me on that.
Hey, this brings up an interesting topic, the topic of dragons, okay? We've found in the Vedic culture, there is this reaccount of dragons, just like, the huge cobra that bit Maharaj Parikshit, right? This is Maharaj Parikshit talking to us, speaking here. And he was bit by this giant, Prabhupada refers to it as a snake bird. But it qualifies as a dragon. And the fact that these serpents are so toxic, their poison is so strong, they breathe fire. And their poison, it makes water boil, like we were reading that about the Ganges, right? And many heads. Now, have any of you seen a serpent, a cobra, like especially in India? Have you seen a cobra, like wild, not in the zoo, in the neighborhood? Can you tell us a little bit about that experience, please?
Not exactly wild. There are people in Govardhan that somehow always manage to find me, and they have these cobras in a basket. I've been approached a couple times. I guess I'm supposed to be impressed and give them money, but I really just want them to go away. But anyway, one time I was in a car and I was stuck at a railroad crossing, and there was this young boy, and he came up and he had in Govardhan, and he had the cobra in a basket, and he took off the lid of the basket, and the cobra, it came up. He held it right up against the glass, and it was sticking its tongue up against the glass, and I could see its hood. Anyway, there are snake charmers, but it was alarming. They're what you imagine them to be.
Mm.
They have these gleaming eyes, their skin is very smooth, and they have this hood that makes them look very regal.
I had an experience a couple of times with cobras. Once I was at the MVT, which is the guest house right behind the Krishna Balaram temple, and I was talking with one of my friends, and my kids were playing on the playground there. So there's this like stone slide and some swings there. So they were like, say where Mother Prabhupada Priya is chanting, where she's sitting, and I was here talking to my friend, and they're going down the slide. So my daughter was like 7, my son was 2. Suddenly I hear my daughter scream, and she's holding my son by his shirt at the top of the slide, and this huge, it was a male cobra. They're big. This cobra was maybe 4 meters, 12 feet long. It was huge. And the cobra had come up on the end of the slide, right where he was going to slide into this cobra, and the cobra was biting the slide again and again and again, ready to kill anybody he could get his teeth into. Vicious. And then one of the gardeners ran over with a shovel and killed it. And then they burned it, because they say that when the mate is killed, then whoever, the male or female, can see the last impression, the last person in the eyes of the mate, and then they stalk them to kill them.
Yeah.
But these snakes, these are not friendly snakes. And also, I remember being at Keshi Ghat on the Jamuna. This takes place very close to Keshi Ghat. Kaliya Ghat is just down. Well, the Jamuna has moved away from this place, but originally it went right past, there's a temple there called Kaliya Ghat. But if you go to Keshi Ghat, the water is still moving. And, I was going on this, on the Braj Parikram, like the town, Parikram. And we were really getting into that at some point, doing this early in the morning, doing our japa walk, going around all over Vrindavan, and at night doing the 6 Goswamis temples. So I'm walking along, Hare Krishna, oh, this is ecstatic. And then like just a few feet away from me, suddenly there's these cobras and these orange, they're red, black with a yellow stripe snake, and they're all sitting like 5 feet away from me on this concrete, whatever they call it, where that goes into the water. Normally devotees just dive off of those things or swim, right? It's like a platform. And then I was thinking, oh my God, these snakes are all over. What to speak of like tigers and other things, yeah.
There was a snake in Mayapur, Srila Prabhupada in the early days. They were building, and they had like a very basic outhouse. And I think it was Jaipataka Maharaj. And Srila Prabhupada was yelling, Jaipataka, 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 as loud as he could. And he came, and there was this door, Srila Prabhupada was holding the door shut, and there was this angry cobra that was trying to bite him over and over again. And he was just short of Prabhupada because Srila Prabhupada was holding the door.
Yeah,
and
see?
It was just so vicious. No mercy. And yeah.
So you can get a little bit of a feeling of what this is like. So, the point, I was listening to a lecture from Srila Prabhupada about this, and it's interesting that Prabhupada talks about the difference between the devotees and the demons, or the demoniac or atheistic people, in regards to this pastime. And one of the points Prabhupada makes is he gives the term of pravritti marg and nivritti marg. Does anybody know what that means? Pravritti and nivritti?
Well, go ahead and define for it.
So Prabhupada, it was really interesting because I was listening. Prabhupada says that pravritti marg means eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And nivritti marg means when you minimize that or give it up altogether. And he gave the example of Raghunath Das Goswami, how even though he was more or less a prince, and it's described like his wife was as beautiful as the goddess of fortune, his family was extremely wealthy, like a phenomenal amount of wealth. And he gave that up to be with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the point where he was only eating, Prabhupada said, 1 pat of butter every 2 or 3 days. I mean, I love butter. I don't think I could ever do that. But just, it's not that they were living like a morbid life of self-denial, just like, going through excruciating austerities. In fact, Prabhupada, he rejects that whole idea that we are not renunciates, that we are developing our attachment for Krishna. But the idea behind the pravritti marg and the nivritti marg, Prabhupada says that the materialistic society has no idea of nivritti marg. They're just absorbed in eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Like people say driving by right now on the road, they're just absorbed in their material desires. And they have no idea that that has nothing to do with them as the spirit soul, as a person. And eating, sleeping, mating, and defending give no satisfaction, no real happiness. Okay? I know Mother Kunti knows this example because I used to give classes at night. That's the mind mapping of the Bhagavad Gita class. But here's an example I want to give to you guys. If you take a line graph and you put 0 in the middle, and you go down -1, -2, down to -10, and then you go up +1, +2, up to +10. So if you take any form of sense gratification. Now Prabhupada, he goes beyond eating, sleeping, mating, defending to impress upon us that for the mind, sense gratification is gaining a sense of superiority over others. So eating, sleeping, mating, defending, and gaining a sense of superiority over others. This is the basic foundation of material life. Okay, so let's look at that. So hunger, okay, eating. It's a negative experience. It's a need. It's a dissatisfaction. Say, it's getting about breakfast time right now and you're feeling a little hungry. Mother Kunkumangi's made a big breakfast for everybody, right? Friday morning. And We're thinking, oh, I'm a little hungry. Actually, I want to go. Don't talk too long, Narottam Das. Now, but if you're like the kids in Gaza that haven't eaten in 2 weeks,
Or more.
that's like a -9, right? You're almost dying, or they do die sometimes, right? Okay, so hunger is a negative experience, all right? Now, if you eat, you can bring yourself back to the point of 0. If you try to eat more than that, again, you go down, especially my age group. You know, you get the upset stomach, you get, in India, you get dysentery. And I'll just throw another example in. I don't know if Mother Kunti remembers this one, but in Houston, there was a famous Epicurean, a woman who would go around to all the restaurants and write articles about the restaurants. And one night, she went to 3 different restaurants.
This is a true story.
And she ate so much that she split her stomach open in the restaurant and dropped dead right there. And when they did the autopsy on her, she had eaten 17 pounds of food that night. Like, what is that in kilos? Like 8 kilos? So that's a real negative, right? Okay, sleep. You're tired. You went to Mangalarti. You're here. You're thinking, oh my God, I'm falling asleep. I know Mother Prabhupada Priya wants me in this class, but my God, I'd rather be at home. You know what the devotees do this, right? We do this, Hare Krishna, and then we go like this. Sleep, right? You're tired. You're really tired, like you've been working all day at American Airlines or somewhere, wherever, you know. Yeah, and all these people have been like complaining to you all day at the counter, ticket counter in the office, you know, like, what happened to my flight? Then you get home, oh my God. And then suddenly, you know, your wife's there, right? And she says, Prabhu, there's a home program. Come on, we have to go. So the point I'm making, right, is that, you know, you're tired, it's a negative experience. You sleep, you get yourself back to the point of 0, but you go on, you try to sleep more than that, you start having these crazy dreams, you know, like somebody probably mentions these dreams like a tiger's in your dream and it's trying to kill you or something like that, or you feel uncomfortable or you get all so sweaty and all of that, right? Everything material is like that. You're cold, you put on a coat, right? You're not cold anymore. That's not happiness. You just stopped from freezing to death. So the positive, when you want to go up, +1, +2, up to +10, that only can happen in Krishna consciousness. Now, the point I made about Pravritti and Nirvritti Marg, Prabhupada said when you look at materialistic society, he said you see 3 things. He said you see a society that's completely focused on the material energy, on materialistic science, and they have no interest in God. Okay? Look at us. Where this is the city of Dallas. How many people live here now? 8 million? In the Metroplex? 8 million people. Look at how many people are here discussing Krishna consciousness.
We have a lot of people online.
Oh, really? Okay, well, I'm so glad you guys are online too. All right, so Prabhupada makes this point about materialistic society. And he said, what's the result? Prabhupada used this exact term. War, 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 and more war. In my life, like I'm 64 right now, I can remember like almost 100 wars. Right now, how many wars are going on? 7 wars going on right now as we sit here. War, 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 and more war. They want to candy coat it. They want to show you on television how happy they are and everybody is rich and everybody loves each other. That is acting. The real fact of the matter is when we become absorbed in sense gratification and material life, we become very selfish and hard-hearted. And Krishna consciousness is the exact opposite of that. Okay, I'll give you a simple example. All right, I'm wearing a dhoti and a kurta, and I have to rush to Whole Foods to get something for the bake sale. Did you guys like the bake sale? It was great. Okay. Let's keep that up. Encourage all the devotees that are involved in that. So, all right, so I run over to Whole Foods. I'm wearing a dhoti and a kurta. You know, obviously, I'm something. All right, now, this young man comes, right? So I'm just about to get some tomatoes and whatever. And this young guy in a suit, you know, he comes over, and he doesn't even really look at me. Like, I got the kind of feeling like if I approached him, say, you know, at his corporate office, he might not even give me the time of day. But that's the kind of the feeling that I had. But first of all, so I was just about to get the tomatoes, and he cuts in front of me and starts to take all the tomatoes, the best tomatoes, for himself. Kind of rude, right? All right, so now let's take a step back. So in material life, here's what's going on. Oh man, that's like water off the back of a duck. I'm kind of entertained by this stuff nowadays. You know, it's like the philosophy, you know, in real time. I was giving out the Jagannath invitations in this new Spirit Soul magazine. If you guys haven't gotten those, we got cases of them. Throw some in your car, give them out to all your friends, anybody you meet. You know, it's a beautiful publication, and invitations to the Festival of Joy. So that's what I do usually when I go to Whole Foods or anywhere. Like, I don't limit my preaching to any particular time, place, or circumstance. I just tell everybody, hey, I'm from Kalachandi. You know, oh, hi, how are you doing? My name's Narottam. You know, and then I say, have you ever been to Kalachandi's? You know, and they're like, where's that? I'm like 10 minutes drive from here. Oh, that's here in East Dallas. We have this like whole Bhakti Yoga village here. We got a great restaurant. We have classes on Bhagavad Gita, all these things. You know, you should check it out. Here's our magazine. Here's when we're doing a big festival downtown Clyde-Morton Park. It's that easy. Even the kids can do it. I used to take all the kids to Walmart on the weekends, you know, instead of letting them go to Chuck E. Cheese for birthday parties and stuff like that. I used to take them to Walmart, and I would just ask permission, and we would put up a book table. Man, the kids are amazing approaching people with the books. Even they collect more money than anybody. The people are just like, oh, you're so cute. Look at are you from India? Okay, so anyway, here I wanted to back up to this. So in material life, okay, you go out and you get a job and you try to make as much money as possible. Now, Prabhupada said that for the devotees too. If you're going to go out and work, Prabhupada himself said this, make as much money as possible. Don't go out there and get taken advantage of. Even Prabhupada, he said if you go outside the temple, the lectures, the prasad should be free. If you go outside, charge for everything. Otherwise, people will take it cheaply. Okay, but in material life, you go out, you make as much money as possible. Then you go to the store, you want to buy the best. So you go out and make as much money as possible for yourself. Then you go to the store, you want to buy the best of everything for yourself. You go home, you cook, you want to make the best food for yourself. And then you sit down and you eat to satisfy yourself. Kind of selfish, right? Now, if you do that every day, day after day, year after year, your heart will become hard. Okay? Now, the Krishna conscious example. We go out and we make as much money as possible for Krishna, to use in Krishna's service. Does that mean you take care of your health? Yes. Prabhupada said our policy is to be healthy and strong, take care of ourselves, take care of our families, and engage our time and our energy in Krishna's service. right? It's not that we make money and then we just give everything here and then, oh, tell your wife, sorry, honey, you got to live on $5 a week. Don't go back to that. Okay, so, all right. Now, we go out and make as much money as possible for Krishna's service. All right, you go to the store. You want to buy the best of everything for Krishna, right? We want the best tomatoes. We want the best fruit. We want the best of everything because we're going to cook and offer to Krishna. Then you come home. You want to cook the best of everything for Krishna. And then we make our offerings to Krishna, and we sit down and we honor the prasad to be able to glorify Krishna. Then your heart becomes soft. Right? You feel so satisfied. Okay, so here's some reflections. I'm going to stop here. Mother Kunti is looking at her phone. Right? I got 3 minutes. Okay, yes, any questions or comments, please?
Well, in the purport, let me hang on.
Mm.
So, and thank you. In this purport, it says, Lord Krishna, with those glowing reddish feet, then began to demonstrate his artistic skill by dancing on the unsteady, moving surface of the serpent's hoods. This extraordinary demonstration of dancing skill was meant for the pleasure of the young women of Vrindavan, who at this phase of their relationship with Krishna were seriously falling in love with him. My question is about this statement here, that his extraordinary demonstration of dancing skill was meant for the pleasure of the young women of Vrindavan. This is the first I've heard this.
Oh, really? Oh, no. Let me bring this whole thing up to speed.
This
What
is
was
so
Krishna
nice.
doing dancing on Kaliya? He was showing off to his girlfriends. That's, this whole thing we're talking about, right? This is a philosophy, right? Actually, this is a love affair parading as a philosophy, guys. That's where we're at here. Now, if you want to go a little more intimately into this, okay, there are different stages of Krishna consciousness. There's sadhana bhakti. There's raganuga bhakti. There is, beyond that, there is the spontaneous platform, which is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is just all about trying to please Radha and Krishna, bringing Radha and Krishna together, and do everything to enhance their love for each other. Hey, this is something too I wanted to bring out a point of. Prabhupada describes this so beautifully. He says that when Radha and Krishna come together, even though Krishna is the supreme Ishvara, right? What is it? Parama Krishna. What is the verse? Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchirananda Vigraha Nadiradir Govinda Sarvakarna. So what Prabhupada describes is, even though Krishna is that supreme personality of Godhead, supremely beautiful, supremely joyful, supremely loving, supremely opulent, but when he is with Srimati Radharani, her love and her happiness and her joy is so, completely overwhelming to Krishna that his happiness, his love, and his beauty increase. And when Radharani sees Krishna's happiness, beauty, and love increase, her happiness, beauty, and love increase, and their qualities are increasing unlimitedly. So anybody who's experiencing that, not just hallucinating it, but actually, really perceiving it, they are experiencing what it's described by Krishnadas Kaviraj as Anandam Buddhivardhanam, an unlimited ocean of transcendental ecstasy. The feelings are increasing at every moment. Now, even though this seems very simple, like the love affair of a boy and girl, but when you go into the depths of Krishna's, unique love, and also the love of all the residents of Vrindavan, this becomes literally overwhelming. And compare it to the material society where you end up in a war, where you're sending your 20-year-old son to go out and become cannon fodder. When you're at home wondering if they're going to blow your electric plant off the face of the earth. Where your economy is being desecrated. Compare that to this. And then you start getting the idea of how sublime this is. What to speak of this, the intensity of love they're sharing. You want me to throw one Radha Krishna joke in here? You guys up for that? Okay, you know, they are like, you know, the young gopis, you know, there are different parties. But Radharani's party, they are, what's a good word to describe them, Mother Prabhupada Priya?
Left wing.
Left wing. Oh my God, that is so politically correct. They are very like, what's that word when you just shun? You know, if some boy is like falling in love with this young girl and the girl's just shunning him. What? Standoffish. Thank you. You're so refined. I'm really appreciating this. Yeah. So now, there's all these intrigues that are taking place simultaneously, but one of them is that Radharani, she was blessed by Durvasha Muni that anything she cooked would taste just like nectar, and anybody who takes and who honors that cooking, that prasadam, will not have any disease, no problem, will live a very long life. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, that Durvasha Muni is a guru in Vrindavan who was associate of Purnamasi, and it's different than the Durvasa Muni in the past time with Ambarish Maharaj. Am I correct in that? Do you remember that detail? No, I think it's a different person actually. Same name, different person. But we have to, this is some homework for you guys if you want to look into this. Okay, so anyway, Radharani then, Mother Shoda, who always wanted Radharani to marry Krishna, arranged for Radharani and her friends to come to her house and cook for Krishna, to Nanda Maharaj's palace every morning for breakfast. And then in the afternoon, they would prepare sweets and snacks and things for dinner. But usually in the morning, they would go from Radharani's palace, the home of Kirtida and of Rishabhanu Maharaj, to Nandagram, and they'd go through the forest. So if you've been to Vrindavan, it's kind of like two hills. You can see the palaces from one another, from each place, and then you walk through these paths. And so sometimes they take one path, sometimes they take another path. Now, Krishna, what he will do is he will try to cut them off so that he can be with Radharani. Okay, so here's the joke, because Mother Manjari is leaving right now. Here's the joke. So she was walking along, and Krishna came there, and he was like all decked out, like by his mother and then his friends, and they like to really impress Radharani, right, to attract her. So when Radharani saw him with her friends, I don't know if you guys ever experienced this, but when you're really in love with somebody and you see them, you can even start shaking from the intensity of your feelings. So Radharani started to shake, and her guru, or one of her closest friends, if not the closest friend, Lalita Shaki, was next to her. So usually there's Lalita, Vishaka, and a whole group of her friends that go with her, and some other younger girls that help them. So Lalita was holding her hand and could feel her shaking. And then Lalita asked Radharani, "Why are you shaking like that? Is it because of those two big gold mountains on your chest?" Said, "Don't worry, that's Giridhari over there. He can easily hold up Govardhan. He can help you." Anyway, that's how intimate these pastimes are. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. Thank you, everybody, for your kind attention, and have a wonderful day.
Can I just share one small thing?
Yeah, sure.
So, and when I was doing Bhaktivedanta class, one of my teachers was telling us that when Sanatana Goswami comments on this Kaliya pastime, he says that, so Krishna's dancing in order to attract the girls and impress the girls, and then, of course, it works. He didn't have to even do that to impress them. They're already impressed. And then at some point, while everybody else is lying there unconscious, the gopis, come back to consciousness, and then Krishna makes that Kaliya goes over to the shore and bows down his heads, and those gopis, like each gopi steps onto one hood of Kaliya, and Krishna expands himself, and now he's dancing simultaneously in his expanded forms on every one of Kaliya's hoods.
So a rasa dance.
With a gopi. And it's like they're dancing, and the jewels are on the heads of Kaliya, and they're making the light, and it's like a jeweled dancing platform, and Krishna's doing a whole rasa leela on the hoods of Kaliya.
Very sweet. Thank you for that. Very, very sweet. Okay, everybody, have a wonderful day. Thank you for coming to Srimad Bhagavatam class and giving me the chance to discuss this beautiful pastime. Hare Krishna. Glories to Srila Prabhupada.